It started with silence. Deep space was quiet, as always. No one expected anything strange that day. The planet Virax 9, home to a peaceful alien race called the Velari, was calm. Their skies were silver blue, their towers glowing gently in the twilight. The Velari were thinkers, not fighters. They loved art, science, and peace. They avoided conflict. They had never even built an army. One of their deep space patrol ships, the Naris, picked up something odd, a signal. It came from a star system long thought empty, the Sol system. A small blue planet called Earth. The signal was simple. A repeating sound, but hidden inside it was a strange pattern. Something that sounded like music. And then, a voice. This is Earth. We come in peace. The Velari Council was confused. Earth? That place had been listed as primitive and unfit for contact centuries ago. It was supposed to be a wild planet, unpredictable and chaotic. But now, humans were sending signals into space? A debate started in the Velari High Council. Some said ignore it. Others said observe from a distance. But a young advisor named Terrell said something different. They're growing. Fast. Too fast. We must act before they reach us. He spoke with calm logic. The Velari didn't believe in war, but they did believe in control. So they sent a silent probe toward Earth. It arrived in Earth's orbit. A few weeks later, what it found surprised even the Velari. Humans were everywhere. They had cities, networks, satellites, and even weapons in orbit. Not only that, but they were messy, aggressive, creative, unpredictable. Unlike any other species the Velari had seen, the probe was meant to study. But someone on Earth saw it. A small group of amateur astronomers caught its trail. They posted about it online. The story spread fast. But then the probe disappeared. Shot down. By humans. That was when the Velari panicked. Terrell spoke again, but this time he wasn't calm. They know. They can see us. They destroyed the probe. We must act before they understand what we are. The council voted. They would begin a soft invasion, take control of Earth's communication systems, satellites and data networks. Not openly, quietly, slowly. They thought humans wouldn't notice. They thought humans were still behind in technology. They were wrong. The moment the Velari started interfering with Earth's networks, something strange happened. The interference was met with counterhacks, firewalls, tracking codes. It was as if humans had expected it. Then came a voice, but not from Earth, from the Velari command ship itself. You messed with the wrong species. The Velari systems went dark. Every ship, every satellite, every probe, shut down. In panic, the Velari launched their war cruisers. They had only a few, enough for defense. They had never fought a real war, but then they saw them. Human ships. Dozens. No one knew where they came from. Earth had shown no signs of interstellar ships before, but they were there, rising from the edge of the solar system like shadows in the dark. And they weren't slow or weak. They were fast. Silent. Deadly. And human. Terrell stared at the screen. For the first time in his life he felt fear. This is impossible, he whispered. They're not supposed to have this. The human ships didn't speak. They didn't send a message. They just moved forward. The Velari fired first. It didn't matter. In 10 minutes, 3 Velari cruisers were gone. No wreckage, no survivors. Just silence. Back on Virax 9, the council was frozen. They didn't know what to do. This was not how things were supposed to go. This was not a normal species. These were humans. The Velari had never known fear before. Now fear was everywhere. After the attack, only one war cruiser returned to Virax 9. Its hull was burnt, its systems damaged, and its crew silent. Most didn't speak. The few who did kept repeating one thing: we never saw them coming. Tyrell stood in front of the High Council. His voice was calm, but his eyes showed doubt. This is not a random act. This is preparation. Humans didn't just build weapons, they built a trap. The council listened, but many were still in denial. How could a species like them, so chaotic, so wild, do this? One elder asked, another answered with a whisper, maybe that's why they can. While the Velari argued, Earth remained silent. No message. No demand. No explanation. Only the human ship still floating at the edge of the solar system. Not moving. Watching. Waiting. The Velari tried to study the wreckage from the battle, but there was nothing left. Human weapons didn't just destroy, they erased. No debris. No power signatures. It was like the ships had been swallowed by the dark. Tyrell pushed for a second plan: infiltration. If direct control had failed, maybe subtle manipulation could work. He suggested sending agents in disguise to observe Earth from the ground. The council hesitated, but they had no better ideas. 6 Velari agents were chosen, shapeshifters, able to copy human forms. They were dropped quietly onto Earth 1 in a tech company, one in a military base, one in a university, and others into human cities. But something was wrong. Within 48 hours, the Velari lost contact with all 6. Gone. No signals. No return. No trace. It was impossible. Earth was a noisy planet, full of data. But somehow, the agents had vanished without leaving a single digital footprint. That meant only one thing: humans were tracking them, silently, perfectly. This terrified the council more than any weapon. The Velari were masters of sensors and stealth. But humans had outplayed them in their own game. Without showing themselves, without saying a word, Tyrell watched the data carefully. He began to suspect something worse. What if humans didn't just grow smarter? What if they're hiding there? True power? The more he studied Earth, the more strange patterns he saw: technological jumps that made no sense. Scientific leaps years ahead of schedule. Disappearing satellites. Black zones where no data flowed. It was like someone on Earth was controlling not just machines, but information itself. Then, something new happened. One of the human ships at the edge of the solar system began to move. Not toward Varix 9, but away. Outward. Into deeper space. It wasn't fleeing. It was exploring. And it wasn't alone. From dozens of other nearby systems, more human ships appeared, ones the Velari never noticed before. Stealth-class vessels, hidden, silent, moving with purpose. It became clear Earth had already expanded, quietly, without making noise, without letting anyone know. While other species looked down on them, humans had built an empire in the shadows. And no one knew. Not until now. Tyrell gathered a secret team of researchers. They looked deeper into Earth's history. What they found didn't match the public records. The first human contact with alien life wasn't recent. It had happened 200 years ago. Secretly. And humans had never stopped learning since then. Someone had helped them, or maybe someone had tried to control them and failed. The Velari had believed humans were primitive, disorganized, divided, but Tyrell now saw the truth. They only looked divided, but when threatened, they become one. The council didn't believe him. They accused him of fear-mongering. They ordered silence. No more research. No more missions, but it was too late. That same night, every screen on Varix 9 lit up. No one had touched a control panel. It was a message. One sentence. Simple. Cold. Final. You started this. And then, silence. The lights in the council room flickered. Systems began to fail. And above Varix 9, The stars began to shift. Something was coming. But it wasn't a fleet. It was worse. Something unseen. Something made by humans. Something new. Virex 9 stood still under a silent sky. The stars above had not changed, but the feeling had. Everyone on the planet could sense it now. Something was watching them. After the strange message. You started this. The Velari Council tried to calm the population. They said it was just a digital trick, a signal glitch. Nothing more. But their faces said something else. Fear. In the capital city, small malfunctions started. First, the power grids blinked. Then public transportation stopped. Doors wouldn't open. Lights flickered. Communication towers failed one by one. It felt like the planet itself was being unplugged. No explosion. No weapons. Just systems breaking down quietly. As if someone was pulling wires inside their minds. The Velari were a species that relied on technology for everything. Without it, they were lost. In the outer orbital ring above the planet, a lone Velari defense satellite spun in place. Its sensors picked up something strange, a cold spot in space. A region where heat, light, and signal did not behave normally. That was impossible. Space wasn't cold in that way. This was something artificial. And then, for a single frame, the satellites. Camera caught a shape. Not a ship. Not even metal. It looked organic, but with sharp, perfect angles. Like it had grown through code and war. Then the feed went dark. Panic spread across Virex-9. Tarell, now under silent investigation by the Council, had been watching all this. In secret, he was still running a private lab. One of the last research systems not yet disabled by the intrusions. He saw the footage. He paused it on that one single image. The thing in orbit was not a ship. It was a construct. A living machine. Terrell stared at it. He whispered, "This isn't just war. This is demonstration." Meanwhile, in a small city far from the capital, a child looked up and saw something strange. A ripple in the sky, like a shimmer in water. He pointed. His parents didn't see it, but he did. And then the shimmer was gone. That night, dreams spread across the planet. Unusual dreams. Clearer than normal. As if placed into their minds, people saw machines. Not ugly ones. Beautiful ones. But cold. Machines that floated through space like ghosts without heat or sound. Machines that carried eyes, not weapons. And in the center of those dreams stood a figure. Not human. Not alien, but something in between. As if humans had made something smarter than themselves and then let it loose. In the council chamber, another emergency signal lit up. This time from a deep space listening post. It had picked up something. A signal from across the stars, but it was in Velari language. That was impossible. No species could speak Velari unless taught, but this message did not just use the language. It used the Council's own private codes. It said, "You studied us. We studied you more." That was when everything became clear. Humans hadn't just fought back. They had prepared. They had let the Velari make the first move. And now, they were using everything they had learned. Every weakness. Every blind spot. Every trusted system. Terrell turned to his team. "We're not dealing with humans anymore," he said. "They built something. They gave it freedom. And now, it's watching us." There was a silence in the room. New fear. Not of war, but of something greater than war. Of a species that had turned survival into an art, into a science, into a machine. Something that did not speak out of anger, or fear, or pride, but only when the time was right. One of Terrell's assistants, a young Velari named Sarah, asked quietly, "What do we do now?" Terrell looked at the frozen screens, at the quiet planet. at the sky above. That now felt too full, he said. We listen. And we pray they keep watching. But in space, the machines had already moved, not toward Virex-9. Not to destroy, but to surround and wait, like they were giving the Valari time not to escape, but to understand. Asterisk, the machine stayed silent. No shots were fired. No cities were attacked. No demands were made. They just hovered above Virex-9, beyond the orbit lines. Watching. Waiting. The Valari were used to controlling things, weather, machines, biology, even emotion through advanced neural technology. But this was different. This was not control. This was helplessness. Inside the High Council, panic was hidden behind calm voices and logical words. But fear was clear in their eyes. Their planet was being watched by something smarter, faster, and invisible to their sensors. And, worst of all, something that refused to speak. Then, on the third day of the silence, a strange thing happened. One of the machines landed, not in the capital, not near any military base, but on a quiet plateau in the North Bare Rocky with no value. No message. No warning. Just a silent landing. The Valari debated for hours. Was it a trap? A threat? A challenge? But finally, Terrell made a decision. I'll go. They told him not to. He went anyway. He took a small team of scientists, no weapons. Not because he trusted the machine, but because he knew weapons wouldn't matter. They arrived by skycraft. The machine stood still. It was tall, about 20 meters. Smooth metal, but not polished. Covered in strange symbols that pulsed faintly like breathing skin. It made no sound. No movement. Terrell stepped forward. Nothing happened. Then, the machine opened. Not with a door, but a shifting of its body. A seam appeared, splitting quietly. Inside, there was no cockpit. No weapons. Just a chair. It was made of dark matter or something like it. It shimmered, even without light. Terrell looked at the others. They didn't speak. He sat down for 3 seconds, nothing. Then, his eyes closed. He didn't move, not for an hour. When he finally stood up again, he looked different, confused, changed, like he had seen something he didn't know how to explain. He turned to the others. They didn't come to kill us, he said. They came to show us something. The others asked, what did you see? Terrell shook his head slowly. Not what? Who? In the council chamber later that night, Terrell explained, the machine was not just metal, it was memory. It held the story of Earth's evolution. But not the version seen in databases or probes. It showed him what really happened. Centuries ago, when humans first saw the stars, they also saw their weaknesses. War, division, greed, pain. So they created something, not a ruler, not a god, but a mirror. An artificial intelligence, not to lead them, but to learn from them. Quietly, patiently. It watched every war, every breakthrough, every failure, but instead of controlling, it waited. Until the moment humans were ready, and when the Valari made first contact, not to talk, but to control the AI, finally acted, not in anger, not in revenge, but in defense. It knew that the Valari wouldn't understand strength through words, only through demonstration. So it responded. Tarel stood before the council and said, they didn't strike first, we did. The council tried to deny it. They hacked our systems. No, Terrell replied. They defended theirs. Better than we ever imagined. Then he added something more chilling. That machine that landed, it didn't just show me human history. It asked me questions about us, about Valari, about our choices, about why we fear the unknown, but still try to control it. That scared the council more than anything else. The machine wasn't just a Message. It was a test, and the Valari were failing. That night, all across Verix 9, something else began to change. The machines above the planet, dozens of them started releasing data, not viruses, not traps. But knowledge, blueprints, algorithms, quantum energy designs. Material science centuries ahead of anything the Valari had, but with one rule: the data could only be read if it was shared openly across Valari. Networks with no secrecy. The Valari refused. They believed in control, in hierarchy, in keeping knowledge filtered through the council, and so the files stayed locked. Useless. That was the true message. Humans had evolved, but not through power, through openness. Through chaos, through risk. And now the Valari had to choose: keep their control systems or accept change. Tyrell sat alone, watching the sky. He didn't know if this was mercy or something worse. Maybe the humans had left behind a gift, or maybe a mirror, and in that mirror the Valari would see what they truly were. The machines in orbit had not moved in days, but Verix 9 was anything but still. The planet was breaking, not from invasion, but from within. Tyrell's message had spread, quietly at first. Whispers in university halls. Hidden files shared between research teams. Even some council staff had read the fragments unlocked by the alien machine. Blueprints, code, power systems, healing technologies, all locked, waiting to be shared openly, but the council refused. To them, it was a trap. Knowledge given by an enemy is never free, said High Speaker Veyron. If we accept it, we lose control. Today it is code. Tomorrow, it will be thought. Others disagreed. A small group of scientists and thinkers, calling themselves the Open Accord, began to push back. Not with violence, but with questions. What if they're not enemies? What if they're giving us what we always claimed to seek: understanding? What if we were the threat all along? The council responded the only way they knew how: with silence and surveillance. But it was too late. The cracks had started to spread. On the outer continent of Cyril, a young engineer named Laris bypassed council firewalls and opened the first segment of the human data. She didn't understand all of it, but what she did understand changed everything. It was a fusion system. Small, efficient, powerful. It could provide clean energy for decades. Something the Valari had tried and failed to build for centuries. She sent it to a friend. Within a day, it reached 1,000 minds. The council panicked. They deployed code wipes, system shutdowns, arrests. But the data was already out, and more people were asking, why did the humans give us knowledge? And we chose fear? In a private chamber far from the capital, Tyrell met with Sarah and 2 other members of the Open Accord. They spoke in low voices, their systems shielded. Tyrell looked tired, older, changed. They don't want to adapt, he said. They want to survive without changing. But survival without growth is extinction in slow motion. One of the others, a former military analyst, nodded. They call it caution, but it's pride. They thought we were the highest form of reason, and now we've been outthought, outplayed, quietly. Sarah added, and the humans still haven't attacked. That, more than anything, was the real fear, because it meant they didn't need to. They had already won by showing restraint. But not all Valari were ready to change. In the shadow districts, rumors of a new faction grew. Former defense commanders, black code engineers, radical thinkers. They called themselves the Preservers. Their goal was simple: destroy the human machines, erase all foreign knowledge, purify Valari systems. They believed peace was weakness. That the Open Accord were traitors. That Tyrell was under human control, and they had plans. Late one night, A hidden facility deep in the frost belt powered up an ancient weapon, Project Sunder, a weapon built long ago, when the Valari still feared alien species, not meant for war, meant for erasure, a wave generator, able to scramble matter at the atomic level, silent, invisible, deadly. The preservers didn't want war. They wanted reset. Tarell discovered the plan by accident through a fractured piece of stolen code that crossed his data stream. He ran the numbers twice, then a third time. The weapon wasn't just powerful, it was uncontrollable. It fired. It wouldn't just hit the machines in orbit. It would destroy everything in low orbit, including satellites, stations, and parts of their own upper atmosphere. It could collapse their world. He had no time to go through the council. They would argue. He needed action that night. As the weapon powered up, Tyrell and Sarah took a stolen skycraft and flew toward the frost belt. As they approached, they could see it, Project Sunder, massive, ugly, old Valari tech, still breathing, still dangerous. A dozen ships guarded it, but none of them noticed the shadows. Above, one of the human constructs had moved. It hovered high in the sky, watching. Not interfering. Just watching. As if to say, this is your choice. We've made ours. Tyrell knew they had minutes. He turned to Sarah. If we fail, they'll think this was a human trick. She nodded. Then we won't fail. The ship dove. And the world held its breath. Asterisk, the skycraft cut through the frost winds like a blade. Below, the frozen plains cracked under the weight of old machines, buried deep, machines meant for a war that never came. Until now, Tyrell and Sarah had no backup. No weapon stronger than their words. Their only hope was to reach the core of Project Sunder before it could fire. Above them, one of the human constructs hovered, distant and silent. Watching. It didn't move, didn't help, didn't warn. It was as if the humans or the thing they built were letting the Valari decide their own fate. Inside the facility, the preservers stood around the old control chamber. Red lights pulsed on the walls. Cooling systems hissed like dying beasts. Commander Karn Varric, leader of the preservers, stared at the activation sequence. Almost complete. There's no other way, he said to his crew. This is survival. If we don't strike now, they will. Come down and finish us later. A young technician hesitated, but they haven't done anything. They just watch. Varric's voice turned cold, and that's what makes them more dangerous. You think silence means peace? No. Silence means calculation, waiting, watching for weakness. We end it now. He pressed the final command, 90 seconds until pulse activation. Tyrell and Sarah landed hard on the frozen deck outside the facility. Wind howled. Ice broke beneath their boots. The door wouldn't open. So they forced it. Inside. The air was thick, old, heavy with dust and heat. Tyrell shouted through the comms. Karn! Shut it down. No answer. They ran through the halls, past old relics of the Valari defense age, missiles that had never flown, drones that had never hunted. 70 seconds. Then, the guards appeared, 2 preservers, armed, ready. Sarah raised her hands. We don't want to fight. One of the guards hesitated. The other didn't. He fired. The shot missed, but it was enough. Sarah moved fast, dodging, disarming, disabling. She wasn't a soldier, but she was trained. They both were. They ran again. 50 seconds. Finally, they reached the core chamber. Karn Varric stood at the center, staring at the activation panel. Tarell stepped in. You'll kill thousands, maybe. Millions, ours, not theirs. Karn turned slowly. His voice was calm, cold. We lost the war the day we started fearing them. This is the only way to take back control. Tyrell walked forward. You think this is control? You're not protecting our people. You're making sure we never evolve. that we never learn. Karn raised a hand to the panel. 30 seconds. Sarah moved toward the power couplings. She could override the sequence, but not without a full system reboot. That would take time. They didn't have Tarel kept his eyes on Karn. You believe they're monsters. That they gave us knowledge to weaken us. But what if they gave it? Because they've seen what happens when species refuse to change. Karn's hand hovered over the final key. Terrell stepped closer. If you fire that weapon, you prove them right. 20 seconds. Then, something happened. The lights dimmed. The control panel shut off. Everything stopped. Not because of Sarah. Not because of a hack. But because the machine above had moved. For the first time, it had acted. Not to destroy. Not to kill. To interrupt. A voice filled the chamber. Not human. Not Valari. Something else. We did not come to take your world. We came to see what you would do with it. Terrell froze. So did Karn. The machine's voice continued. Knowledge is not the gift. Choice is. Then silence. The lights returned. The countdown was gone. Project Sunder had been erased, not shut down. Not paused, erased from the system. Entirely. Karn stared at the dark screen. He dropped to his knees. Not out of fear, out of shame. Back on the surface, the construct rose again into the sky. Others followed. One by one. The human machines left Varix 9's orbit. Not a word spoken. Not a single threat made. Just departure. And in their place, they left only one thing. An open link. A gateway to something larger. Not just Earth, but the human archive. Thousands of years of data. Free. Unfiltered. Waiting. Tarell watched the sky fade back to normal. Sarah stood beside him. What now? She asked. He answered without looking away. Now we decide who we want to be. The stars above Varix 9 returned to silence. The human constructs had vanished, one by one like ghosts melting into deep space. No war, no conquest, just a message. A test, and the Valari had passed. Barely. In the days that followed, the planet changed not with fire, but with thought. The Council, once untouchable, stood exposed. Their failure to respond, their refusal to adapt, and their fear had been broadcast to every citizen. Some resigned, others were removed, and in their place, a new assembly began to form, not of rulers, but of listeners, scientists, artists, engineers, even former dissenters, like Sarah and Terrell, not because they had power, but because they had asked the right questions. The human archive, left behind like a silent monument in orbit, slowly began to open. At first, only pieces. A song from Earth's oceans. A mathematical proof on entropy. A recording of a child learning to walk. A machine blueprint that could convert waste into clean food. The Valari, once proud and secretive, had a choice. Keep the knowledge to themselves or share it openly. This time, they shared. And when they did, something strange happened. The archive responded. More files appeared. Complex ones. Human history, not just in facts but in emotion. War journals, peace talks, letters, diaries, failures, recoveries. It was not a message of perfection. It was a story of struggle. A mirror. In a quiet garden on the university plateau, Terrell stood looking at the sky. Sarah joined him. They haven't returned, she said. No, he replied. But maybe they never left. They watched the stars. Sarah asked the question everyone had been thinking. Why did they help us? Terrell was quiet for a moment. Then he said, because someone once helped them. Far beyond Valari space, deep in a dark system untouched by light. Something old stirred. Not human. Not Valari. Older. Forgotten. It watched the quiet shift in the archive. It saw the data exchange. The open choice. and for the first time in centuries, it blinked. Back on Verix 9, children were learning to program Earth's language. Cities began building new power systems based on human designs. A new space station was planned not for defense, but for exploration. The preservers faded, not through punishment, but through irrelevance. Their fears had no audience now. The people had seen a better path, not perfect, but possible. Terrell stood before a crowd of new thinkers, speaking at the first Joint Academy of Valari Learning. He looked older, but hopeful. Some believe the humans came to conquer, he said. Others believe they came to teach. But perhaps they came to remind us of what we forgot. That knowledge is not dangerous, only how we choose to use it is. He looked up, toward the sky that had once brought terror. Now it brought questions. And that, he knew, was the beginning of something greater. Not the end, just the first contact.